Hey guys, Kelsey here from roughandtumblefarmhouse.com, and today we are going to talk about how to preserve some of your delicious garden harvest from your herbs in salt. I'm Kelsey from roughandtumblefarmhouse.com. This is Coda. I'm recording from my sister-in-law's house, so things are a little bit wonky today. Every single week I share stories about farming, family food, and fortitude at my 5-acre homestead in northern Minnesota. So everybody's pretty familiar with just dehydrating herbs, hanging them to dry, that sort of a thing. Fermenting herbs, even making really good herb paste. But something I've been playing with and experimenting with is preserving herbs in salt. So it's a really simple process to do. You are just gonna need some really good sea salt, some fresh herbs from your garden, cutting board, knife, and something to store them in. Now, in preserving herbs in salt, there are certain herbs that you can and can't use or would want to use and not want to use. If you've got something that's really leafy, you're not going to want to be preserving that in salt because it just isn't going to preserve as well. Something like a mint or a basil or even a sage just has too much surface to it, too much moisture in the leaves if you're doing fresh herbs. If you have dehydrated and dried herbs, you can certainly do that already, but the purpose of this is another way of preserving fresh herbs from the garden. So things that have a much smaller leaf to it, so things like savory, thyme, rosemary, oregano, a parsley would also work well. In this batch of salt, I am using thyme. I have quite a bit of thyme in my pot left here at this time of year. I'm also doing a parsley and some rosemary. And in terms of how much you use of each, that really depends on what you have available to you. It depends on what kind of flavors you're looking for. I find rosemary tends to be a pretty strong flavor. I also happen to have a little bit less of it than the other herbs, so I'll use a little less rosemary. Total, you're going to use about 15 to 20 sprigs of whatever herb combinations you're going to be using. And if you only have just a whole bunch of thyme or a whole bunch of rosemary, just use that one herb, no problem. So this is, even though it's a simple process, it does take a little bit of time because you want to first wash your herbs. And then of course you don't want all that extra moisture on there because water is something that's going to cause food to spoil. So after you rinse them really well in the sink, I just shake mine off like a dog, and then I lay them out on a towel and then press another towel on top to get out as much of that moisture as possible. I'm not smushing, I'm just gently pressing the towel on here to take off that extra moisture. And I'm actually gonna let these herbs just sit out overnight, 12 to 24 hours before we actually preserve them in the salt. You want them to look just a little bit wilty. This is just gonna help a little bit more of that moisture to come out of the herbs, but you're not gonna lose any of that great flavor. So once your herbs are a little bit wilted, slightly dehydrated from about a day of resting, then you're going to take them off of the stems. However you wanna do this is fine. My mom was kind enough to get me this little herb stripper, but I have found with fresh herbs, at least, especially kind of like the tips where it's more tender, it works better just to pull it off with your fingers. So that's all I'm going to do here is just get all these herbs separated into nice little neat piles. From there, we're going to chop up our herbs. Just a rough chop is all you need to do. And after a rough chop, we're going to add in our salt. Now you can use, if you don't have access to kind of a nicer sea salt, I have Malden salt flakes here from another project that I had, so I happen to already have them around. These are really nice just because they have a good big surface area, and also it allows me to chop the salt with the herbs to really blend them together well. And since I think this makes a really nice gift for people, it's just nice to use kind of a fancier sea salt if you have it, a nice flaked salt. But if all you have is some Morton's salt sitting around, that's great too. And that is my my go-to, the non-iodized salt that you would also use for canning and things like that. You can also use for preserving your herbs. So once we have our herbs all out and roughly chopped, then we are gonna just sprinkle the salt or pour the salt straight on top. And so for 15 to 20 healthy stems of herbs, we're gonna add 2/3 a cup of our sea salt. And once we put that on top, we're just gonna do another rough chop and kind of scoop from the bottom and stir it up really well and continue to chop and really blend the salt and these herbs together. After that, it is done. It's a really simple process. So here I'm scooping them into a really cute jar that I have with a cork lid and a little spoon. Now, it looks really cute and pretty, and if you're gonna give this as a gift, you could totally put it in something like this. I think I got this little jar at Dollar General, and I think it's just the sweetest thing ever. And it looks really cute for pictures. However, if you are wanting to use this or have this preserved for a good long time, please just put it in a mason jar with a 2-piece cap or a plastic cap. I always find things don't last quite as long with a plastic cap, so I probably go for the 2-piece metal cap to preserve them for the longest amount of time. And then you want to keep it in the fridge or somewhere really cool. If you have a root cellar that stays around like 40 degrees, something like that, then that would work as well. But so here you can see a beautiful finished herb salt. Now, how do you use this salt? Very simply, you can use it as a base for marinades or as for rubs, or you can even just season your food with it in general if you just want to sprinkle it on top of things. It's kind of like a finishing salt. So I'm really excited to use this. I think I'm going to be using this as kind of a rub for some roast chicken. I think it's going to be really good. And so again, it's got a lot of uses. It's a great way to preserve those herbs aside from just dehydrating them. And the best part is since the salt has been smushed with the herbs, the salt is drawing some of that moisture and some of those oils out of the herbs. Not only do you have the wonderful herbal flavor in the herbs themselves, but you have it in the salt is totally infused with these delicious herbs. So it's really a treat to have in your kitchen. If you have any questions, please comment below. Otherwise, I also have a link to the blog post. I usually forget some sort of detail in these videos, so make sure you check out the blog post for the full instructions on how to make your own herbs preserved in salt. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week for more farming, family food, and fortitude here at our Rough and Tumble Farmhouse.